Korea or Canada or maybe Taiwan. But I did not know it was the Holy Land. But I believe from the minute the check left my hand, and I pray, can I be saved? I spend all my money on a future great. Would on Jesus I cut you in on 20% of my future sin. I'll cut you in. I cut you in. Yeah, porcelain Mary, her majesty's pure, looking for virgin territory. Coat hanger halos that don't come cheap. Television shepherds with living room sheep, and I pray, can I be saved? I spend all my money on a future great. Would on Jesus I cut you in on 20% of my future sin. I cut you in. I cut you in. Welcome to another episode of the apocalypse, all two of you. And since you have unwisely chosen the apocalypse, you are in urgent need of a guy. And unfortunately for me, I am that very tired guy. But I thought of something, or someone, as I pondered whether to just go to bloody sleep. I thought to myself, I'm tired, yes. But there is a man who is most likely deceased. But if he is not deceased, he has been spending his days starving in a cell with 70 other men, meant to kill him. So I said, you can be a little tired. You have no right to complain. Because you're not facing the gulag yet. But some men and women are. So this is for them. Let's begin. I woke up to this headline, New York Times, Donnie extorting colleges the same way he's extorting law firms. Basically, with the law firms, it's you get no federal access unless you give us free law services for, worth $600 million or whatever. So that's the extortion of the law firms. Several of the law firms have bent the knee and accepted that deal. Other law firms are fighting it in court, the ones with balls. Speaking of balls, before I go into this, lately I've been pondering the Catholic Church and the might of the Catholic Church and the Pope, the position of the Pope, not the man. The man's 2 feet in the grave. Over. His reign is over. But the position itself, you see, throughout history, popes have had just tremendous power in the Catholic Church in general. They've made kings come begging at their feet if the church excommunicated you, or the Pope did as a king, threw you out of the church, or, just cast you in a bad light, could turn all of your people against you. So the power of the papacy throughout the centuries is quite large. And if only we had a real leader of the church, and I'm not part of the Catholic Church, but I know the power of the Catholic Church, the money they have behind them, the amount of congregations, the institution that is the Catholic Church. Imagine if those Christians and the Pope, the head Christian on planet Earth, allegedly, imagine if they had thrown their full might against this Nazi Antichrist movement. It would have been over a long time ago, and very quickly, very powerfully, very strongly. It would have been quite over. But they didn't do that. They went along to maintain their own power, and the Pope said nothing. And now he's 2 feet in the grave and a vegetable. And his staff is broken. For God has proclaimed it. And he's worthless. He's just an old man that gets wheeled around in a chair now, a prop. But imagine if we had a real Pope, a real leader for God in that position. And he was calling Donnie what he is. And he rallied the entire Catholic Church against him. What a story that would have been. Unfortunately, that's not this world. This world is El Salvadoran dictators that laugh about innocent men they most likely killed in their prison. That's what this world is, son. I wish it wasn't. Anyway, back to this bullshit. So extorting colleges, basically the Trump administration is exerting control of huge sums of federal research money to shift the ideological tilt of colleges and universities. In other words, Donnie wants it to go back to the good old days where, we could say the N-word out loud and segregation and no DEI, no help for minorities. Donnie doesn't like any of that. The Reich in general doesn't like any of that. I think they've proven that in spades. So what they're doing is taking federal money away from any college that doesn't bend to their, whatever this is called, the will of the Reich, which is anti-woman, anti-minority of any form. If you don't abide that philosophy, the Nazi philosophy, Satan's philosophy, you get federal money taken from you. So again, extortion of colleges is going on. Some colleges like Stanford and Harvard are standing up. Most are bending the knee because they need the money to survive, and Donnie knows that. And that's why it's extortion. So you have that going on two fronts. Then you've got the geopolitical front where he's trying to extort Canada. We're going to try and extort Egypt using the Suez. We're going to try and extort Europe using the Suez. That was dead admitted on the Signal app chat between the multiple traders that took part in it. Then we've got the protection racket. Hey, we're pulling our troops out of Europe as if they were ever there for Europeans in the first place. Unless you pay me. That's a protection racket. Donnie is all mob all the time. He can't think past that mentality. It's not smart. It's just evil. That's all. So we've got the protection racket, we've got, the annexation talk, we've got the death camps, we've got the extortion of colleges and law firms. Not dystopian at all, right? We've got China basically whooping our ass. Because again, China does not need us, son. I don't care what you heard on Fox News or Alex Jones or from your daddy. China never needed us. China's not like America, where every company decides they're going to ship their manufacturing overseas because they could all care less about their own country. All the customers that made them rich, namely us, Americans. So the thanks for that was these huge companies. They shipped all the jobs overseas. to China, mostly. And they're there to this day. And that's been the trend since, I don't know, the late 60s. Ship whatever you can overseas and then H-1B visa whatever we need to over here. Whatever cuts American workers out of jobs, we will do it. That's what the corporations said and did. So the Chinese had a different philosophy. Let's not betray our own empire and country, and we'll keep the manufacturing here. But the Chinese did pimp out their people to the first world, let's be honest. There's no workers' rights. There's nothing there. There's suicide nets on the side of factories. But at least the Chinese said, you know what? We're not going to betray our own country, our own empire. We're going to keep the manufacturing here. The American corporation said we could give two fucks about this country. Let's ship all the manufacturing overseas. So if there's a war or there's a trade war, we get screwed. Then we cry on Fox News and all the business magazines and channels that we're losing money. So the Chinese did not betray their own empire that way like the American corporations did. So we're fucked. If China says we ain't doing business with you no more, you can do it all yourself now. You're the big tough guy, Donnie. If they say that, we're fucked. Why again? One, we're overbloated. The Chinese are not overbloated. Overbuilt, overbloated. You know the story. There's a McDonald's on every corner here. China is not like that. They didn't overbuild. They didn't overbloat. In fact, they got extra cities that people don't even live in yet. That's how ahead of us they are. They don't fuck around. They don't betray their own nation like all the American corporations did, taking Russian money. No, they look out for number one first. And they gladly took all our manufacturing and then laughed at those idiot white billionaires that did that. Fucking fools. Because every factory they put over there made China stronger and us weaker. The corporations could have cared less. That's part of the reason we lost our country. Those very same people that shipped the jobs overseas for the past 50 years also want their tax cuts. So they sold you out that way too. They sold themselves out, their families, their children, everything. Because it's all over now. All of your empires gone in under 10 years. It's all over for all of you. That's what you've done. With your greed, with your betrayal of your country. The country that made you rich, son. China halting all Boeing orders. Ooh, that's gotta hurt Boeing, huh? Not a lot of people buying planes, right? And then you got Donnie when you got the American weapons manufacturers, the plane manufacturers, saying that whatever we sell to foreigners will be 10%, less good. Donnie said that right in the White House. Then, alienation of all of our allies that buy planes from Boeing, I'm sure, and American manufacturers, I'm sure. Guess where they're going to be not buying from in the future? American manufacturers. Donnie did that. How many of you manufacturers voted for Donnie? All of you. Every single one. Again, your greed is your downfall. I knew greed would be our nation's downfall. That was part of it. Stupidity was also part of it at the rube level. They just stupid. They just voted straight up against their own interest. At least the rich people got their fucking tax cuts before straight up Armageddon, actual Armageddon happens. What the fuck did you get? But enslavement, son. Got jack fucking shit. In fact, you'll lose your business, your farm, or whatever you do got left. Some of you already lost your government jobs. I know, again, you thought you were too good. You thought you were special. You thought since you got a promotion, you're better than everybody else that got fired. They need you. They don't need them. You're a better worker than them. You're more professional. All the things you pump up in your head that aren't true remotely. And then you got the pink slip. And you learn the right doesn't give a fuck about you. It's about dismantling and looting this thing called democracy, the strongest democracy that ever was on this planet. No one could touch us. But that wasn't good enough for the rubes and the greedy at the top. And now Boeing and companies like American weapons manufacturers, plane manufacturers, you will see a lot less business specifically because of the Reich. You already know this. You're already seeing it. That was your doing, son. The CEO or the high-level executive at the plane company. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Yeah, the guy in the hoodie and sunglasses is telling you you're a fucking idiot. And you might as well just bend over and kick yourself in your own fucking ass. Because the Antichrist is here for chaos, division, war, and worship. That's what you're going to get, son. You certainly ain't going to get stability. No one is. So this isn't all China's doing. They're not going to buy, and they're halting all kinds of business with America. They about tired of us. And it kind of sucks for us, right, that all of our factories are over there, right? Yeah, it really does. Oh, the satellite image of the CCOT death camp. Remember, I showed you the picture. And here's a portion of it. You can't really see all of it. It's someone's podcast. But you can see that reddish, blackish looking staining, can't you? And it kind of does, I don't know, make one's mind think of something. Blood. We can't confirm that. We can't verify that. Again, it's a satellite photo. I showed it to you the other day. It's the thumbnail, actually. Word on the street is you can't get these pictures anymore. They've been, like, removed. Access is being restricted. Word on the street. I haven't verified that. Google satellite image of CCOT from 48 hours ago. Now no longer visible or accessible via Google Maps or Google Earth. Hey, Google, why can't we see this anymore? If this is true, if these images are indeed gone or they're restricting access from people seeing CCOT, that tells me that's blood. But that's my opinion. That's what I think. I'm not saying I have irrefutable evidence of that. But again, I've done algebra before with a different group of people where I didn't have all the answers. And this is an equation. We're missing a variable. We're missing a number. How can we fill it in? Well, when the clip or the video of the satellite image goes viral and the whole world says it looks like blood and possibly a stack of bodies there, we can't tell for sure though, but that's what it looks like. And then they restrict access. Well, that gives us a value for one of our variables, doesn't it? If that's true, if access was restricted for CCOT in any fucking way in satellite photos, then I guess everyone that was assuming that that was blood, maybe they're on the right track, huh? Why would you need to hide it otherwise, son? Oh, again, and it's another day with no proof of life regarding Abrego Garcia, in case you care, in case you're wondering. You know, the guy down in the death camp where it looks like there's a stack of bodies and blood, the death camp that no one ever gets released from. Again, when they send you to a room full of 70 men where you don't have enough room to move, that's a death sentence. You can't survive that. That's the point. So if the intent is to kill you in a different number of ways, it's a death camp. If you never walk out, it's a death camp, son. I'm seeing more and more people use that term. I was using it a while ago because I know what it means when you send a human being into a room with 70 other men with not enough room to move. That means some people are going to die. That's torture. That's hell. That's a lot of pissed off individuals in one cell, some of them hardened criminals. Some people are going to die. So that's a death camp, son. Here's Donnie with another socialist bailout of the farmers, and I don't mind farmers getting help, but here's the thing. They wouldn't have needed the fucking help, again, if it weren't for Donnie and his tariff grift and his manipulations of the market, etc., the alienation of their trading partners again. You guys went through this in the first term. There were tariffs on China the entire 4 years. Donnie never took them off. China never budged a centimeter. Some of you lost your trading partner and lost your farms, etc. You voted for it again, didn't you? Of course you did. And that tells me something about you, those farmers, those of you that voted for this. Again, you didn't vote for the financial success of you and your family, obviously, because you watched Donnie do it to you the first time. So you voted for him for a different reason. I know what that reason is. I won't say it for the 90th time. You didn't vote for your own family's success and your financial success. You voted for something else, and everyone knows it, and that's why you're going to lose your farm. Let's hear what Donnie has to say. Actually, let's read this first. Ron Filipowski. Throw up protectionist trade barriers that hurt farmers, then bail out farmers with government handouts, MAGA socialism. We already went through this in the first term. The farmers needed a bailout specifically because of Donnie's tariffs. I watched the movement take place. I watched the head farmer of the movement with the white hair and the white beard, in shape guy, older guy. He started a movement. The tariffs were killing him and his fellow farmers. He started a movement against Donnie to get him the fuck out of there before he lost everything. Well, it worked. But how many of you went back and voted for this again after we bailed you out? Again, you all cry you hate socialism, blah, blah, fucking blah. You don't give a fuck about socialism. You'll take that check. Every single farmer took that check last time. Why? Because they would have starved without it and lost everything they've worked for. And that's when everyone's willing to take a check, no matter their stance on socialism. So again, that tells me all of you, since you all cashed your checks, your handouts from the government over these past 10 years, that tells me none of you care about socialism. So you're not voting based on fear of socialism. You're voting the way you vote for another reason, and we all know what that is. And it has nothing to do with socialism as you cash your farm bailout check. Let's hear what Donnie says about the farmers whose lives he personally ruined again. Our farmers are great, but because of their greatness, they are always put on the front line with our adversaries, such as China. No, they're put on the front line by Donnie. When Donnie talks shit on Canada, Europe, China, slaps 150% tariffs on China. That's all Donnie's doing. No one else's, son, and a lot of you voted for it. Don't blame anyone else but yourself and Donnie. Those are the two parties we're interested in here. Whenever there's a trade negotiation, or in this case, a trade war, the same thing happened in my first term. Yeah, it did, because of you, Donnie. Everything was humming along. The farmers had their trading partners in China or wherever, and farmers also had the aid money coming from the government. A lot of farmers were living off of aid money from the government. They were providing the government with food that was delivered to different places in the community. So they got to make a living. People got to eat for a cheap price. Everybody wins. They got that taken away now too. Their aid money is gone. A lot of them will lose their farms because of that. Now their trading partner is gone, China. A lot of them will lose their farms because of that. There is one man responsible, Donnie Shitbags, and you voted for him. So you're also responsible. No one else, not the libs, not the transgenders, not the blacks, not the gays, not the Hispanics. You, son. You knew better. You're wise, right? You can run a farm, tractors, herd animals, do the whole thing. Yet the one thing you can't do is look out for your own interests. That's not wisdom, son. You were voting for something else, and we all know what it was. Here we are again, where we got to bail you out. And again, I don't mind giving farmers subsidies. They're the one group of people I like giving subsidies to. But that's not what this is. This is a guy who's grifting off of tariffs and manipulating the market, who doesn't give a fuck about the farmers. He's doing it to them again after how many he ruined last time with his fucking tariff grift. One guy is doing this. This isn't a random economic downturn and farmers are hurting. No, they were doing great under a guy named Joe. Then this thing came along that a lot of them voted for, who they watched tariff their trading partners last time. So again, one guy's responsible for this. These bailouts wouldn't be necessary but for a guy who leaves his house in orange face every day with a loaded diaper full of shit. But in normal circumstances, if the farmers were hurting, even though a lot of you would say, I lean more towards the liberal side of things. You would say that, right? Guess what? Even though that's how you think I lean, I would still want to help the farmers. If there was some economic issue where they needed money. But that's not this, son. We all know what this is. This is the Donnie Shitbags effect. Chaos, division, war, worship, bankruptcy. Let's continue. Vance's favorite demagogic tactic, which he brings to every argument, that's J.D. Vance, the couch fucker, is to reshape his opponent's position in an absurdly extreme and preposterous way. I notice a lot of GOP people do that, actually, because they don't have any real arguments, so you have to do that. So he gets to argue with a fictitious person who doesn't exist. It would take one phone call from Trump. Everyone knows that. Let's see what JD said. Are you proposing that we invade El Salvador to retrieve a gang member with no legal right to be in our country? Where in the Supreme Court's decision does it require us to do that? Okay, first of all, no one's saying let's invade El Salvador. But just like Ron said, one phone call and this guy could be back here and everyone knows it. And again, the dictator could fly up here and we got the greatest fleet of planes in the world. Planes that go 2,000 miles an hour. Everyone knows we could get him back if there was a will to get him back. That's if he's still alive, which I don't think he is personally. We got no problem threatening Canada with war. We got no problem threatening Iran with war. We got no problem bombing Yemen. We got no problem bombing Somalia in February. We've got no problem threatening Europe. We've got no problem threatening China. We've got no problem saying we're going to take over Greenland, the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal. We got no problem talking openly and inviting reporters to listen while we talk about our extortion plans for Egypt and Europe. Again, we got tough talk everywhere else. When it comes to a little third world country called El Salvador, we got no tough talk. All of a sudden, we're helpless. You notice that? I did. So, hey, if we're going to invade Canada, Greenland, we're going to take over to Suez to Panama by military force. Again, Donnie's made comments about all these areas that we're going to get it, no matter what it takes. He said these things. That's a threat of military action. We all know what that is. Why can't we do it to El Salvador? Oh, because it's a death camp. And Donnie's the Antichrist. And he wants death camps just like Hitler had. And he needs to clear a lot of space out in American prisons for some group of people. I wonder who. Anyway, let's move on. Let's hear what Donnie has to say about Harvard, because Harvard told him to fuck off. Perhaps Harvard should lose its tax-exempt status and be taxed as a political entity. Hold on, you know what? I got to address some things. First of all, Abrego Garcia was never, no judge ever said he was a gang member. A judge actually said he's not allowed to be deported to El Salvador. So yes, he has a right to be in the country. So no judge ever said he was a terrorist, a gang member, and that he has no legal right to be in the country. That was never said by a judge. What the judge did say is we can't deport him back to El Salvador because he will be persecuted. He will be killed. He was fleeing the gangs that were threatening his family. That's what we heard in court. So JD's premises are a lie. And then the premise of, what do you want us to do? Go to war? Just like Bukele. What, you want me to bring a terrorist back into your country? Well, no one said he was a terrorist but the Reich. That's the problem with that story, Mr. Tiny Dictator from El Salvador. Now let's move on. Perhaps Harvard should lose its tax-exempt status and be taxed as a political entity if it keeps pushing political, ideological, and terrorist-inspired supporting sickness. So if it pushes Donnie's Reich, what would I call it? Reich propaganda. Dugan Manifesto, Trumpo futurism, women suck, all minorities suck, camps. If they were down with all that and they were teaching that political ideology, which isn't political ideology, it's just evil. If they were teaching that, it'd be cool. Right, Roops? So this person says, man who ran a fake scam university wants to lecture Harvard. The irony is wearing a MAGA hat. Indeed. How about we take away tax-exempt status from Joel Osteen's churches where you find money in the walls? No? Those are legit, right? Where money falls out of the fucking walls when you remodel a bathroom. That's legit, right? But Harvard isn't legit. Their tax-exempt status isn't legit, right? Because they dare stand up to the Reich and say, yeah, to the Reich, you're not running us, sorry. We know you think you're Hitler, but you're actually not. Well, he actually is, but he's the modern incarnation of it. Anyway, let's continue. So Donnie's looking for further revenge. He's already taken some federal money away from Harvard. Now he wants to take their tax-exempt status away. But churches where money falls out of the walls, they're cool. They get to keep their tax-exempt status. And if you got enough money to where you can hide it in the walls and not spend it for a long time, I guess you could send that to the IRS, right, for taxes? Nah. Osteen needs a new Lamborghini, son. Here's Ducey's kid for Fox News asking Miss Levitt, or the Nose as I call her, a question. Deporting American citizens to Central American prisons, is it legal? Of course it's not legal, but whatever. Let's hear what the Reich has to say. Well, it's another question that the president has raised. It's a legal question that the president is looking into. Miss Levitt doesn't want to say it's legal because then she could go to prison or something. So she's saying we're looking into it. The Reich's looking into it. Do you feel better now? Steve Bannon. We're working on 5 or 6 different alternatives that Trump could run again, and I think 4 or 5 of them are going to work. So talking about a third term, talking about dictatorship. You guys are cool with it, right? Because it has an R next to it, because that's how weak and malleable you are. You need a king. You need a dictator. The rest of us don't. We're not like you. We don't want a king or a dictator, and we don't even care if that king or dictator has a D next to their name. We ain't even looking for it in that situation. We want you to do your 8 and skate. Okay? Class? That's what we looking for. People that can think for themselves. People that give a fuck about democracy and the Constitution. You know, all the things you pretend to care about. So this is also going on while we're debating whether this is a Nazi Reich or evil or politics, or we're treating it as a normal situation. We've got a president talking a third term. We've got sycophants like Bannon and others talking a third term, that we're looking into how we can do that legally when our Constitution says you can't do that legally. You know, that document, again, you pretended to care about in all the debates you had on Facebook and shit. So yeah, in the midst of all the chaos and division, there's this idea of Donnie being a dictator. What did Donnie do last time when he lost power or lost the vote? Did he give up power willingly? No, he incited a mob to overthrow the Capitol until someone got shot. And then they realized, oh shit, this shit's real. We're terrorists. Let's go home now. My point is, did he give up power last time willingly? Absolutely not. And my search for the Antichrist person throughout the decades I've been alive, looking at this person, that person, wondering, seeing people pointing the finger. I never pointed the finger at anyone until Donnie. I asked myself, well, even before Donnie lost, I said to myself, would the Antichrist, the person that is the Antichrist, the main character of the story, would they ever give up power willingly? Of course, the answer would be absolutely not. Because that would be what this Antichrist person covets most. Power, the grift, money, power, influence. The biggest stick on planet Earth. Who could make war with the beast? What did Donnie do when he lost? When he lost, I was like, great. Then I'm wondering the next few weeks after, he's replacing key military and cabinet positions, and he already lost the election. What's up with that? Oh, he's going to try and overthrow the government and withhold help to let it go on for a few hours and hope it succeeds. And he gets to stay in as dictator. And again, if Mike Pence would have went along, if other people would have went along, it would have succeeded. But Mike didn't. So when he lost, I got happy. I said, maybe you're wrong, Nick. Then what did he do? He wouldn't give up power willingly. Exactly what the guy I thought he is, or the thing I think he is, would do. I know you all thought it was the black guy, right? But what did Obama do after his 8 years? He went home. That's what he did. He didn't try and overthrow the government. That's what your Messiah did. The same thing that Hitler did, the same thing that Saddam Hussein did. So what do you think he's going to do this time, class? Susie in the back, can you raise your hand? He tried to overthrow the government last time and didn't leave willingly until the plan failed, until a bunch of cops got beat. One of them died the next day of natural causes. Right, Rubes? Had nothing to do with him getting his ass beat by like 2,000 people, right? Right, Rubes? Right. So, class, what did he do last time? I just explained it to you. What's he going to do this time? The same thing he did last time, right, class? Right. He ain't leaving. He's never leaving. Until that final moment in the story where the man comes around and puts all these people in their place in a very violent and abrupt way. all at once. It's not pretty. And, I know certain people that have this idea of Jesus, the modern idea of Jesus and Christianity and the Bible, and it's feel good and will be raptured out before all the bad things happen. Well, guess what? The Antichrist is in charge of the entire world right now, and no one's been raptured out. That's for the end, folks. For that moment when the man comes around, I told you. That's when that happens. I'm sorry. Some Christians are actually going to have to suffer. Like the apostles did, like Jesus did, like so many throughout history. And I know in modern feel-good American first world Christianity in England here, it's all about feel-good, nice Jesus, lovey-dovey Jesus. No, the story goes like this, son. If you actually read it and took it in and didn't just listen to the pastor in the feel-good church you go to. When Christ comes back the second time, he comes back as king and conqueror. And a lot of you end up in the wine press. And man, is it ugly. So it's not going to be nicey Jesus when he comes back. And none of you will be prepared for it. That have your name on this, I mean. I'll probably be dead. So will a lot of other good people, I'm sure. But you, who has your name on it, you won't be. And my God, what you're going to have to go through. Scares me. I wouldn't want to do it. But you know better. Trump to Fox on deporting Americans to a gulag in El Salvador. We want to do it. I would love to do that. He mentioned the homegrowns. He'd love to do that. He said that at the end of his comment. He would love to do that. That is the Antichrist. That is the beast, son. Who in their right mind would say, I would love to send a group of people to a death camp in El Salvador? What other than a demon would say that, son? No other. And this, the head demon, the beast himself, says this out loud to all of us. Again, Donnie mentioned homegrown. Donnie's an American citizen, adjudicated rapist, convicted felon, adjudicated fraud, adjudicated defamer, who would, in normal times, be serving a prison sentence. Therefore, according to Donnie and his eligibility for the program, Donnie would be on the plane. That's what you voted for. A convicted felon, worse than a lot of the men that got sent to the gulag, by the way. 75% of them had no record. Can Donnie say the same? Absolutely not. He's a convicted felon, 34 felonies, adjudicated fraud, defamer, rapist. Sounds like he's a threat to society to me just from the rap sheet. And we're not even talking the overthrowing the government and the stealing the 3,000 classified documents. We didn't even get to that yet. I don't know. Just from the rap sheet alone, Donnie sounds like a homegrown to me, a homegrown we need to ship to El Salvador. Wouldn't you agree? You agree on sending those men that have no criminal records to El Salvador. So you should have no problem with this. And if you're in favor of U.S. citizens that are in prison going, well, Donnie should be in prison right now for a whole number of crimes. Not because I don't like him. I'm not you people. I don't want to put people I don't like in prison. I would never do that to my worst enemy. But if you committed a crime and were convicted like Donnie, that's a different story. But I'm never for locking people up because Nikki doesn't like them. Never. I am not you, son. I don't operate that way. But Donnie's a convicted felon, again, adjudicated rapist, fraud, defamer. If anyone belongs in a prison cell, sounds like a threat to society, well, that'd be Donnie, wouldn't it? Fuck yeah. And Donnie wants to send homegrowns that are in prison there. So Donnie's a homegrown criminal. Literally. Oh, here's Bukele and Donnie, the dictator of El Salvador and the dictator of America. The two men shook hands over the unjustified, indefinite imprisonment of people convicted of nothing. The mobster Bukele, the mobster Donnie shitbags, putting other people in a death camp, and your money pays for it. That $6 million went to Mr. Bukele, I'm sure. Disgusting. This is, I forget it, it's Senator Kennedy, the fat racist one. Kennedy apparently misheard the question from Fox. Excuse me, that's the wrong one. Senator Kennedy, you are a smart legal mind. Do you have any problem with deporting Americans to El Salvador? This was on Fox News. Kennedy responds, no, none. I think the president is right. So, hey, no problem sending Americans to El Salvador, according to Mr. Kennedy. But hold on. The interview continued, and the question came up again. And Kennedy acted like he didn't hear it the first time. Because I guess he realized how fucking evil and crazy he looked when he gave his first answer. How bad that looks. He thought about it for a minute. Oh, yeah, let me fix that. Let me erase that real quick. Ready? Kennedy apparently misheard the question from Fox later in the interview when he was asked again if he supports Trump wanting to deport Americans to El Salvador. He said, no, I don't agree with that. Yeah, I watched the clip and he's like, wait, Americans you're talking about? And the reporter's like, yeah. And he's like, no, I don't agree with that. As if he hadn't answered the question already before. Again, and he shook his head like he hadn't heard of this. They've been talking about it for days, and they talked about it months ago. Shipping U.S. citizens to another country. This has been talked about for a while, but now it's really being talked about. Kennedy acts like he's never heard of it. American citizens. It's like he had a brief moment of humanity, of actual being human for a second. Like, what are you, crazy? Americans getting shipped to El Salvador? Yes, son, that's always been the plan from second one. Again, I read you the poem yesterday regarding Nazi Germany, the order of who got arrested first until they got to the Jews, the real target. What do you think all this deportation shit is? It's so willy-nilly. It's so half-ass. It's just a doorway to get to you and me, son. That's all it is. And again, the main two communities they want the most. But that's not coming for a while, that betrayal. Christians and Jews will be the ultimate target. But for now, the ultimate target is American citizens, journalists, lawyers, any law enforcement that might go against them, any dissidents, the same type of shit that happened in Nazi Germany. That's all we're seeing here. Again, in Germany, the communists got locked up first, then the socialists, then the trade unionists, then the Jews. The Jews were the real target. The others were the doorway to get to the Jews. The others were the ones standing in the way of them getting to the Jews. Who stands in their way right now? A few judges and some liberal politicians. I have a feeling those people will be disappeared at some point. That's what the death camps are really for. That's what the idea is really for. It's not for deporting illegal immigrants. That's the get the doorway open. They're moving to the next goal. What's the next inch closer to you and me, regular unlocked citizens, unlocked up citizens to be deported? Well, they're moving to the next chess piece, which is American citizens that are in prison for whatever reason. They didn't give any specifics. It's just the worst of the worst, right? So we're all cool with it. Well, we already learned that that wasn't true about the Venezuelans that got deported. For the most part, they weren't the worst of the worst at all. In fact, most of them didn't have records. So now we're going to trust Donnie again, and Miss Levitt and Miss Bondi and the Gestapo with the masks that are rounding up all these people. I'd like to say something to them actually quickly. All of you masked agents that are grabbing 19-year-olds while their father's at work and shipping them halfway across the country and then to El Salvador so they never get seen again. I want to explain something to you. Let me get real close when I say this. You get to wear the mask now so your fellow citizens don't see the scum that you are. But when you're on the banks of the lake, son, and you will be, you won't be able to wear your mask then. And we're all going to see you. So although you think you are hiding and you think you are safe from exposure, from your fellow humans seeing the abject fucking scum that you are, there's going to come a time where you don't get to put that mask on. And everyone's going to see you for what the fuck you are. But you know that. I know deep down you know that. Expect that, okay? That's your future. Every one of you masked cunts that kidnaps people and ships them to a death camp. You are the hand of Satan. Literally. Because Fat Donnie and Fat Leon and pussy-ass Stephen Miller ain't going to do it. And tiny-ass Miss Bondi ain't going to do it. Therefore, you have to be the hand of Satan. I know if you don't do it, you don't have a car, your little bitch-ass apartment, whatever you got going. That's not good enough, son. That don't justify it. So many humans, no matter what I have to do, it's okay as long as my family gets fed. That's not an acceptable philosophy in the realm I'm from. So Kennedy changed his mind on the abject evil he had spouted just minutes earlier. This is obviously a coordinated experiment, a coordinated talking point fest. What I have here is 4 abject right-wing shills. Every utterance, every breath that leaves their mouth is a waste of our goddamn time. So again, we have 4 right-wing, abject, worthless shills. And they all got pissed at Grok and had a little debate with it. All 4 of them. It's kind of interesting. It doesn't seem contrived at all as a setting of the table for turning Grok into what Alexander Dugin wants to do. We need to turn the AI into us, into the Reich, into Satan. We can't have AI telling the truth because then you got shit like this. It makes all the right-wing grifters look bad. It fucks their grift up. So let's start with the first one. A person named Liz Wheeler, absolutely worthless waste of fucking oxygen propagandist. Total shill. Are you kidding me, Grok? Hey, Elon Musk, and of course they all directed it, Leon, because again, this is a setting of the table. This is all contrived. This is being done for a purpose. So Leon gets the go-ahead. to tweak this thing into the Reich, to having the Reich's bias, Liz Wheeler's bias. Hey, Leon, you may want to check who wrote the code for Grok on this, because it sounds like you've got a censorship industrial complex mole. Now the person that wrote the code for Leon is what, a deep state operative or something? God, you people are pathetic. It must suck when all you tell is lies. Then you got to do performative bullshit like this. What a sad fucking existence yours is, Liz. Whoever the fuck you are. Grok hurling false accusations at me like it's Facebook fact checkers, that's in quotes, or YouTube strikes and demonetization because I reject the woke mind virus. Always leads to censorship. Anyone who seriously uses the phrase woke mind virus, I can take nothing you ever say after that seriously. I'm sorry. That's a propaganda phrase for rubes. Rubes who are the target of people like Liz Wheeler. Let's see what Grok said that has her so upset. Again, Grok is Leon's AI. And right now, Leon's AI is telling the truth. That's what baffles me, that Leon hasn't tweaked it already. Again, they did do it once, remember, when everyone was doing the search. Who's the biggest spreaders of disinformation? Leon and Donnie's name came up 1 and 2 every time, every search. So Leon had someone alter Grok to where those 2 names would not come up on that specific search. It was discovered, it was verified that this alteration took place. I think Leon has since switched it back. So let's see what Grok says. Fake news on X is mainly spread by a small group of super spreaders, like at KSorbs, that's Kevin Sorbo, I think, at Liz Wheeler, that's her, and Robert Kennedy Jr., who share misleading content on topics like vaccines and elections. Elon Musk also amplifies, and there's more, but you get the gist. Grok is just telling the truth. This is a right-wing shill. Don't get mad that everyone considers you a right-wing shill, even AI. They mentioned Robert Kennedy Jr. Oh my God, he's a total freak. He's the brainworm guy. He has no business near our health department, let alone running anything. What a joke that is. And then Kevin Sorbo, for fuck's sake. I mean, Kevin Sorbo is just a hopeless MAGA dude, and it's just such a joke. So what is Grok doing here? Telling the truth, telling the literal, unbiased, straight up. When Grok does a search and checks out everything, it comes to the realization that Kevin Sorbo is a right-wing shill, basically, even though he used to be an actor. Liz Wheeler, right-wing shill, propagandist. Robert Kennedy Jr., misleading information. I don't see the lie here, Miss Wheeler. Miss Shill. I don't see the lie. What is Liz really saying here? Leon, you need to tweak this so it lies and doesn't tell the truth about me. That's what the Reich wants. That's what Dugan wants. That's what Leon wants. That's what Donnie wants. That's what all the right-wing podcasters want that took Russian money. They want AI altered in their lying-ass image, so we can't get the real information. And they real mad that the real information is coming out. I noticed Liz isn't threatening to sue or anything. You notice that? Because she knows if she sues or makes those threats, in court, it's going to be discovered, oh yeah, Liz is one of the biggest spreaders of disinformation, misinformation that there is. She would lose the case. That's why no lawsuits are being threatened by any of these people. This is a contrived event by all 4 of them to put the idea forth in the rube, the peasant rube's head out there, the mark, that, oh yeah, we need to change AI into the Reich's propaganda tool. They want you thinking that. Rube. That's what they're going for here. And Leon's looking for justification. Oh, the community of right-wing shill podcasters that are taking Russian money, they're telling me to do this. So, there's my justification. This contrived fake event here. But this is important. I want to show you. Again, I tell you about all these agendas. They're happening before your eyes. Here's Freedom Health. I don't know who the fuck that is. I do know they're a right-wing shill. I had them blocked already when I found this. This is someone posted this information. So let's see what Grok says first this time. The video you mentioned likely shows an incident from the 2020 election in Detroit, where windows were covered at a vote counting site. This was done to protect voter privacy and prevent intimidation from protesters taking photos, not hide fraud. Access was limited for all challengers, not just GOP workers, with no evidence of partisan bias. Fact checks confirm these actions were legitimate, despite misinformation suggesting otherwise. Yeah, remember how MAGA was going to all the polling places and threatening people and doing crazy things? That's why the shades were closed. MAGA shills, right-wing grifters, decided to run with that as if something was wrong with the election. Grok is saying flat out, your 2020 allegations that you're making are lies. Here's what the Freedom Health shill said. Grok, there's a video of DNC workers literally covering their windows so people couldn't view them counting votes. They literally barred GOP workers from participating or being able to view the count. This was all documented in real time. No. Grok told the truth there. This right-wing shill is not telling the truth. And it's obvious. And I remember these incidents, and I remember the talking points, and I remember the lies. Why are all four of these people doing these little demonstrations for us? Here we go with a person named Beam. I have no idea who this shill is, but let's go. Grok, don't you agree that the left-wing extremist mainstream news, MSM, are far more strident, far more polarizing than conservative news? Before I even read what Grok says, the opposite is true. You'll get more truth on left-leaning news than right-leaning news, because right-wing politics in general is all lies. I can't think of really one basic truth that they tell. They don't care about fiscal conservatism. They run the credit card up every time. And they leave the Democrat with the deficit, or excuse me, the debt every single time. They start wars. They do tax cuts for the rich the second they get in. That's always first priority in a GOP administration every bloody single time. Fox News is an abject joke. It's entertainment. They're not even classified technically as news. That's what joke programming you are watching. CNN is now right-wing owned. They are much less trustworthy than they used to be. CNN was instrumental in taking down Donnie Shitbags the first time. That's why it was bought. Twitter was also instrumental. That's why it was bought by the Saudis, Putin, Leon, and Puff Daddy, and others. I've noticed personally my own experience throughout the years. Almost every right-wing talking point I can debunk in about 0.5 seconds. I can't do that with left-wing talking points. Most of them. Is there sensationalism on the left and the right? Of course, but there's a severe imbalance. Much more lying on the right. And much more being fine with it on the right. That's why you lost your country, son. Because you're fine with it. So let's see what Grok said. Both left-wing and conservative news can use strong language, but research suggests conservative media like Fox News and Breitbart may be more polarizing due to their insulated ecosystems. Well, again, Fox News, $750 million for defamation. That should tell you right there who the real liars are. Alex Jones, $1 billion for defamation. Donnie Shitbags, $500 million for defamation. Mainstream left Leaning outlets such as CNN are less insular, integrating with traditional journalism, which can reduce polarization. Studies show right-wing audiences often rely heavily on single sources, amplifying echo chambers, while left-leaning audiences engage more diversely. Still, perceptions of bias vary, with conservatives often distrusting mainstream media. Well, they love Fox News, that's mainstream. Again, AI just telling the truth here. And I gave you that same basic opinion before the AI gave it to you. Why? Because I'm interested in the truth, not left-wing politics, not right-wing politics, especially. I'm not interested in being on the list of $750 million defamation settlements or $1 billion defamation settlements. Why? Because I don't want to lie about people. The truth is horrible enough, son. So, 3 right-wing shills so far, and Grok completely disagrees with their stances. Of course, none of their stances are based in reality. One more, and we're done with this little contrivance. This is a guy named Mike with a check mark. Because we all need to, we need verification that that's the real Mike. He also spreads more misinformation than the people you mention in your post. Why did you only name people who lean conservative? Because they're the liars. They're also the pedos. I think about 3 people that worked in the church today I saw, and 1 police officer. That was just today. That got busted for pedo type activity. Not transgenders. Cops and people in the church. That's what I saw today. Misinformation isn't exclusive to one side. Both conservatives and liberals spread it. Though studies suggest conservatives may be more susceptible due to media environments, naming only conservatives could reflect this research or a bias in focus, especially if the context involves specific conservative claims. However, if the accuser also spreads misinformation, it points to hypocrisy. Ignoring their own actions while calling out others, a balanced approach would recognize everyone's role in the problem. And that's it for the lesson. And again, this was obviously done on purpose to give Leon a basis to start altering Grok and his AI. And I'm hearing some of the data centers for the new Donnie AI, the infrastructure that's being built, the $500 million, or was it $1 billion contract that went to Altman. It's from what I'm hearing, they've already started building some of these data centers in where else? Texas. And here's the thing, I don't know about you, but when I think of artificial general intelligence, I think of data centers to the tune of $500 billion that are going to be built with a power plant connected to them all. I get a very kind of dystopian shiver down my spine. Artificial intelligence data centers with a power plant attached to them. Why do we need those? What are these data centers really going to be for? Doesn't sound dystopian at all, right? This is a question for Miss Levitt, the press secretary again, who I also call the nose. The president has long said that it would be an abuse of power for a president to direct prosecutors to investigate him. Last week, President Trump explicitly directed the DOJ to scrutinize Chris Krebs. How is that not an abuse of power? Levitt doesn't respond. Because there's really no answer, is there? Biden could have done that. Biden could have had Merrick Garland go after Donnie tooth and nail. He could have pushed for that. He could have said it openly in interviews, on camera. Guess what Biden did? Not that. He stayed out of it. That's what a president is supposed to do. You're not supposed to take your attorney general and start sicking them on people. You know, like Donnie did the first time he was in office. And remember, who had Epstein in their custody. And shortly after he met with a fat guy named Bill Barr, he was dead. On whose watch? Son. Well, that'd be Bill Barr and Donnie's watch. I know the Clintons did it, right, guys? So yes, the president is not supposed to use the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, as their personal lawyer, as their personal junkyard dog. I'm hearing they're going to go after Letitia James for mortgage fraud. I'm sure it's a perfectly legitimate case. I'm sure it's just not part of the revenge tour at all, right, Rubes? Speaking of Letitia, she's right here. This administration's chaos is tearing families apart, including this 19-year-old from the Bronx who was sent to prison in El Salvador and taken away from his father. All those sent to this dangerous prison without due process must be released now. This 19-year-old, I believe, is the one where ICE got him, got a hold of him, and then realized, yeah, this isn't the guy we were looking for, but let's take him anyway. I read the whole article regarding this man and his son. They came a long fucking way. They did it the right way. They asked to enter the country. They applied for an asylum type situation. They applied to be able to work in this country. They got permission to do all that. They were trying to live a decent fucking life, and they get hit by the brown shirts or the Gestapo, whatever, the masked scumbags that will be demasked in the next realm for all to see. So they grabbed this kid, they shipped him halfway across the country. The father got to talk to him once in one of the camps he was in, and then he went to El Salvador. Father hasn't heard from him since. Can you fucking imagine, people? Anyone arguing in favor with this? For this, I don't care what PR firm is paying you, what government. Guess where you going, son? I suggest you stop arguing for this right now. One more time. Even though no one takes it seriously. You going to, though, don't worry. You going to. He who is for captivity, into captivity he goes. This man busted his ass. Lives in an apartment with a whole bunch of other people, and his son lived there too. And they were just trying to make it, man. And again, they didn't cross illegally. Both of them. They did it the right way. How you're supposed to do it. And they slept in long lines outside the border, waiting for their number to get called. They had to sleep out there. The guy is so disgusted he wants to go back to his country and never think about this again. Could you fucking imagine? No one leaves that prison camp. It's a death sentence. He'll probably never see his son again. You cunts did that. Every one of you with your name on this. Every masked cunt that helped make this happen, you did that. Are you proud of yourself? I hope the answer is no, for your sake. not mine. In a shocking moment, Carolyn Levitt mocks the El Salvadoran immigrant mistakenly ported. Again, the nose says, based on the sensationalism of many of the people in this room, you would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year. Again, there's no taint on this guy's name in any way, shape, or form, except from the nose and the Reich. They're the only ones calling him a terrorist. I read all the case information. Some informant for some masked cunts said he was he was head of the Eastern MS-13 or something, and the head of the Eastern MS-13 is in a certain state. The guy's never been there in his life. This was the type of information used against him. But even a judge finally said, yeah, I don't want him going back to El Salvador. They might kill him. That was the final ruling. Where is he at right now? He went to El Salvador, and yeah, he's probably dead. So they completely ignored a judge's ruling. No judge has ever adjudicated him a terrorist, a criminal, a bad father, any of this. So for this cunt, who's not but a tic-tac-nosed trophy wife for a 60-year-old, is talking about this man's fatherhood. Is Father of the Year. He did nothing wrong except stand in front of a Home Depot trying to get some work one day. That's his worst crime. As Miss Levitt, with her horrid fucking Skeletor nose job, talks shit on him. And he's probably dead. Maybe that's what they mean by he will blaspheme those in heaven, God and his tabernacle. Maybe that's what that piece of scripture means. Miss Levitt and the Reich talking shit on this man, laughing about this man, and he's probably dead. As she, with her Skeletor nose, gets up there and lies about this man, calls him a terrorist. The other cunts from the Reich in the cabinet, they go on fucking Fox News. They call him a terrorist, a gang member, blah, blah, blah. He's none of those things. Rubes. And you'll learn that the hard way when you're the one on the plane to the El Salvadoran extermination camp. That's when you'll say, oh shit, maybe them liberals weren't so stupid. Maybe I was a stupid one. You won't say that till you're on the plane, though, unfortunately. And by then it'll be too late. Levitt confirms that the White House is considering tariffs to bail out considering a bailout for farmers because of the tariffs. Again, so now we're talking a socialist handout to the farmers, specifically because Donnie ruined their businesses again. A specific socialist handout or bailout or whatever you want to fucking call it. They might as well call it the Donnie Shitbags bailout because he's the only reason all of this is happening. Everybody was humming along just fine under Joe. Stock market up higher than ever. Look at you now, son. Look at you now. You got Skeletor up there talking about farmer bailouts again because one orange-faced maniac is grifting via a thing called tariffs. Oh, and here's Mr. Holman. He always looks so happy. He doesn't look like a demon at all. He was on Fox today. Holman on Abrego Garcia. If somehow he comes back and that happens, he's going to be detained and removed again. What's the sense of bringing someone back who's simply going to face deportation again? Well, how does Mr. Holman know that? And again, what's up with all the arguments There are no arguments. Again, why do I care about Mr. Abrego's history? None of that matters. You know why? Because the government admitted they shouldn't have sent him. They said we made a mistake. Okay, so you made a mistake. Can we fix it? No. We got to leave him there. In fact, we'll fly up the president even weeks later as everyone's saying, hey, can we bring this guy back? As judges order the government to bring this guy back. They just ignore it. But again, we can invite the dictator of El Salvador and we can all sit back and laugh and talk about building more camps and homegrowns and all that shit. In this dystopian nightmare of a Reich that we're in. Waist deep in now. And then we've got demons like Mr. Holman, destined for the lake. Just another piece of shit, worthless waste of oxygen, destined for the lake of fire. That's all. Saying, oh yeah, we'll bring him back and we'll deport him again. Again, this man's probably dead. We all know that. Otherwise, they would have brought him back. There's only one logical answer to this question. They can't bring him back. Why? Because he's dead or almost dead or in horrible condition. In fact, I have a person from El Salvador or from that genetic line of people who has relatives there who gave their testimony about what it's like. We'll get to that in a moment. President Trump's tone on Canada has shifted. He stopped talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, at least publicly. That's a Canadian reporter asking Skeletor. I would reject that the president's position on Canada has shifted. Perhaps he just hasn't been asked about Canada. He believes Canadians would benefit from becoming the 51st state. Yeah, we know Donnie believes that. And really, what does that mean? That Canadians would benefit. Always replace that with the word I or me. That means Donnie thinks he'll benefit. With Greenland, oh, they'll benefit from this, what we're doing. No, Donnie will benefit. Whenever Donnie uses the word America, replace that with me or I. Take a water break for a second here. Still ill, my throat's rather dry. So let me smoke a cigarette and make it all better. You know, it's funny too, the amount of people over the years that have said I'm not a Christian because I smoke cigarettes. Let me break something to you, son. You're not a Christian because you voted for the Antichrist, okay? Do you get that concept? Cigarettes are the least of your fucking worries. Or mine. What I was worried about is not being on the side of the devil. Not putting my name on the Antichrist. Not taking the mark when it comes. Not talking the Antichrist and his evil policies up to my friends and neighbors and online. That was my goal. That's what I was concerned with. My future, your kids' future, our country's future. That's what I was concerned with. You're concerned with a cigarette. If only you were so concerned about your soul and the future of your country and your future and your children's future, like we were, like we begged you to be. Maybe it wouldn't be the apocalypse. Maybe you wouldn't lose everything. Maybe we wouldn't lose everything. Too late now. You think God gives a fuck about a cigarette, son? You know what he gives a fuck about? You not joining the Antichrist. That's what he gives a fuck about. And he doesn't care. The God you pretend to believe in, He doesn't care what letter the Antichrist has next to his name. That letter does not automatically make the Antichrist not the Antichrist. Let's continue. Fox can confirm Reuters reporting below. Top Hegseth advisor Dan Caldwell escorted from the building, being investigated for unauthorized disclosure of classified information. We can confirm the Reuters reporting is accurate, but we do not comment on ongoing investigations, a senior U.S. official told. So this was the first thing I found about this. So we got Hegseth and the boys, the whole Reich cabinet, basically inviting a reporter to listen to or view texts of imminent strike packages for Yemen. A package that was about to happen in an hour or a half hour. A reporter got to look at, because Hegseth and the boys are fucking morons. Now we've got this Dan Caldwell person who was escorted out of the fucking Pentagon because he leaked something. But he's not the last name on the list. And the question I have to ask, what the fuck are you people doing? What, once a week you're going to leak classified information? That's where we going? Because we already hear, actually. I mean, how old is the Signal app thing? A week or two? I don't know. There's so many scandals per day with these cretins. So now we've got another person leaking information that was escorted from the fucking building. And here's a quick little, limerick, I guess you could call it. And then we'll get back to that. ICE isn't deporting immigrants, it's kidnapping them. Indeed. Doge isn't fixing the government, it's dismantling it. Indeed. Trump isn't helping Americans, he is retaliating against them. Indeed, Donnie hates you. The way the country treated him, New York treated him. We didn't vote him in 2020. He hates every one of us. And he is the beast and the Antichrist. He is of the devil, literally, so he hates all humanity just for that reason. Pam Bondi isn't upholding the Constitution, she's ignoring it. Yeah. Pam Bondi is one of the most eager of the Reich to do evil. She enjoys it, I can tell. Again, Dan Caldwell, senior advisor to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, was placed on leave and removed from the Pentagon amid a leak investigation into unauthorized disclosure. So we've got Hegseth leaking shit. We've got this Dan Caldwell guy. We have that other, 7 cabinet members that were leaking shit. The head of intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was leaking shit. Oh, God. China has just canceled all jet orders from American manufacturer Boeing in response to Trump hitting the country with tariffs as high as 145% on Chinese goods. China will also no longer purchase any aircraft-related equipment from American companies. Ouch. Again, the Donnie shitbags effect. And if China says we ain't doing business with America no more, we fucked. Because again, China don't need us, we need them. This headline came later in the day. Judge scolds government for doing nothing to return deported man. Wow, a judge scolds the Antichrist. I'm sure that'll slow him down. I'm sure that'll stop him dead in his tracks. No, it's meaningless. They've ignored every other ruling they don't like. Why wouldn't they ignore this one? And again, the guy's probably dead, unfortunately. They wouldn't be fighting this hard not to send him back with all this pressure. And here's a person just with a great comment. If you don't get out until you die, it's called a death camp. Indeed. What else would you call it? I would call any place a death camp. that has 70, 80 men to a cell. Some people in that cell going to die. Guaranteed. And again, that's a Louisiana bayou, catfish on the grill with some crawdads. Guaranteed. If you don't get out until you die, it's called a death camp. And unfortunately, so many of you will hear that statement and it will not sink in. It will be meaningless to you. Why? Because you ain't the one in the motherfucking death camp. That's why. For so many of you humans out there, unfortunately, it will take until that moment before you realize you fucked up and you were wrong and everyone else was right. One more time, let it sink in. If you don't get out until you die, it's called a death camp. Then they say CCOT imprisons people for life. Indeed. And this ain't the only testimony on that. There's information out there about the prison. You could read for yourself. What else would you call it but a death camp if you don't leave until you're dead? Again, my definition of a death camp is much looser. If a human being is going to get shipped to a country they are not from, to a notoriously vicious prison, where 70 or 80 men to a cell, that's a death sentence. That's a death camp. Now let's read a little bit about the wonderful Mr. Bukele and his Reich. A smart Latin American policy expert friend reminded me that the head of El Salvador's prison system is currently sanctioned by the U.S. government under the Magnitsky Act, and yet the Trump administration wants to send U.S. citizens to these prisons. Sanction, you say? Let's see what's up with this. Two quick pieces of text. Organized crime in El Salvador, Osiris Luna Meza, Carlos Amilcar Marroquin, Chica, and Alma Yanira Meza Olivares. This family in El Salvador that kind of runs shit, they're mixed with Middle Eastern blood. That's why you're hearing some Middle Eastern names thrown in there, like Nayib Bukele. Nayib, it doesn't sound like an El Salvadoran name to me. Maybe it is. It sounds more like a Middle Eastern name. And yes, his family, he's like half Middle Eastern. So that's why you're seeing some names like Osiris and shit like that. An investigation into officials of the government of El Salvador and incarcerated leaders of gangs such as Treasury designated Mara Salvatrucha, MS-13, has revealed covert negotiations between government officials and the criminal organization. MS-13 was designated on October 11, 2012 for its involvement in serious transnational criminal activities, including drug trafficking, kidnapping, human smuggling, sex trafficking, murder, assassinations, racketeering, blackmail, extortion, immigration offenses. Osiris Luna Meza and Carlos Amilcar Marroquin Chica led, facilitated, and organized a number of secret meetings involving incarcerated gang leaders in which known gang members were allowed to enter the prison facilities and meet with senior gang leadership. These meetings were part of the government of El Salvador's efforts to negotiate a secret truce with gang leadership. Yeah, I'm sure it was just about a truce. And it wasn't about a mob or a mobster named Bukele getting in business with these people. I'm sure it had nothing to do with that. It was all just about a truce. Sure. In 2020, Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele administration provided financial incentives to Salvadoran gangs, MS-13. Financial incentives, you say, or maybe payment for services rendered. and 18th Street Gang Barrio 18 to ensure that incidents of gang violence and the number of confirmed homicides remain low. So they were paying people not to kill people? That's how we got the lower crime rate? We pay the mob off? Are you fucking serious? What a fucking joke, man. And they weren't just paying the mob off. Get the fuck out of here. They were doing business. That's what they were doing. What a fucking joke. And the number of confirmed homicides remain low. Over the course of these negotiations with Luna and Marroquin, gang leadership also agreed to provide political support to the Nuevas Ideas political party in upcoming elections. Wow. Wow. What does support mean? Intimidating people to vote for you? Is that what that is? Is that what support is? Nuevas Ideas is the president's political party and won a 2/3 supermajority. So, yeah. Employ the gang members to intimidate people to vote for you or support you. Oh my God. So we won a 2/3 supermajority in a probably rigged election. In legislative elections in 2021, the Bukele administration was represented in such transactions by Luna, the chief of Salvadoran penal system and vice minister of justice and public security, and Marroquin, chairman of the social fabric reconstruction unit. Jesus Christ, these dystopian ass names. In addition to Salvadoran government financial allocations in 2020, the gangs also received privileges for gang leadership incarcerated in Salvadoran prisons, such as provision of mobile phones and prostitutes. Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, Luna also negotiated an agreement with gang leaders of MS-13 and Barrio 18 for the gang support of President Bukele's national quarantine in gang-controlled areas. Separately, Luna participated in a scheme to steal and resell government-purchased staple goods that were originally destined for COVID-19 pandemic relief. My God, these people are just pure fucking scum. These items were transferred to private companies and then resold on the private market on the back to the government. Luna's mother, so they made money off the government as well by selling these fucking items. Jesus Christ, man. Luna's mother, Alma Yanira Meza Olivares, acted as a negotiator in some of the transactions. Additionally, Luna and Meza developed a scheme to embezzle millions of dollars from El Salvador's prison commissary system. My God. Just no depth they won't sink to. They also created fraudulent job positions within the prison system in which supposed employees would receive monthly paychecks and return most of the earnings back to Luna and Meza. My God, how many grifts can one or two or three people be involved in? My God, these are Donnie's kind of people. No wonder he's in league with them regarding the death camp. No wonder he went into business with them. He realized, oh, they're just like me. They'll take $1 to stab their grandma. That's the type of people we're dealing with. Holy shit, man. Luna and Marroquin are designated pursuant to EO 13818 for being foreign persons who are current or former government officials or persons acting for, on, or behalf of such an official who are responsible for or complicit in or have directly or indirectly engaged in corruption, including the misappropriation of state assets, the expropriation of private assets for personal gain, corruption related to government contracts, or the extraction of natural resources or bribery. Meza is designated for having materially assisted, sponsored, or provided financial, material, or technological support for, or goods or services to, or in support of Luna. So they're abject criminals. Bukele's a mobster, just like Donnie, and they get in league with the gangsters. They pay them to not kill so many people, or at least hide the bodies better, or at least maybe they just tell the press not to report on it. They're people that run the penal system in that country. They robbing the government. They robbing everybody. They stealing supplies meant for COVID and reselling them to anyone who will buy them. My God, these people are fucking demons. So is it possible they're running an extermination camp? Yes, it is. Oh my God, these people are crooked. I don't even know how to be this crooked. I don't know how. Do you? All right, this is the person who has a cousin in El Salvador. Let's hear what they say. Last year, my cousin in El Salvador had an ex-boyfriend, an amicable separation, the father of her child, sent to one of the evil prisons in El Salvador. He died in there, and for 2 weeks, they wouldn't let her see his body or tell her the cause of death. Once the state surrendered his body, he showed clear signs of emaciation. He was finally able to be put to rest, but they never declared his cause of death or performed an autopsy. I bet they didn't. I know the conditions of these prisons, of these death camps, is what killed him. Again, I started using the phrase death camp a while, way before these people were using it. Now I'm seeing people left and right using that phrase. Again, when you send someone to a death camp where there's 80 people in a cell, guess what that is designed to do? Make it so some people don't walk out of that cell ever again. In other words, the conditions are set up for you to die. In the Nazi camps, again, they barely fed you anything. Most of the men lasted about a month because that's how long you can last with no food and work at the same time. Until your body gives out. It sounds like Bukele's running the same kind of thing down there. If this is a true story, and it sounds like it is, this doesn't sound like theater to me. I can tell by the way it's written. If this person was emaciated and died shortly after entering the El Salvadoran prison, that tells me that Bukele's probably running something similar to what Adolf had going, where they work you and starve you till you fall out. Or maybe you get killed by the other gang members in the cell. You know, the 69 other people in the cell that you have no room to move in. That makes for a lot of pissed off men, doesn't it? That means some of them are going to die, and that's the point. That's why it's a death camp. Regardless of whether there's straight up extermination going on or not. But I'm not really convinced there isn't straight up extermination. I'm not convinced that wasn't blood in the satellite photo that I showed you today and yesterday. Again, Abrego Garcia, no proof of life. It's been weeks and weeks. I don't think he's alive. And I think that was the point. And I think, yeah, they're getting rid of people down there. But again, that's my opinion. I don't have the evidence for it yet. But I'm just waiting for that headline. Someone's going to find out. I don't know when. I'm just waiting for that headline. Abrego Garcia is no longer alive. We all know it's coming. Will you believe it's a death camp then, I wonder? I hope for your sake you do. And if you have your name on this abject fucking evil, and there's no other way to frame it, I hope you turn the other way and take your name off of this. We're going to hear from one of two pastors that I take seriously in this world. 2, we're going to hear from their perspective on what you should do. We'll get to it in a minute. Crazy, an NLRB whistleblower who shared concerns about Doge's activities with government officials, was subjected to attempted blackmail and/or surveillance, likely by Doge staff, in retaliation. This is real ugly here. But I totally expect this stuff from Leon, his band of Hitler Youth, college dropouts, and high school kids. And Donnie, these are the type of people they are. They're abject evil. And they hate anyone who dare speak the truth about them. That's the thing they hate most. Simply the truth being told about them. The new revelations about Doge's activities at the labor agency come from a whistleblower in the IT department of the NLRB who disclosed his concerns to Congress and the U.S. Office of Special Counsel in a detailed report that was then provided to NPR. Meanwhile, his attempts to raise concerns internally within the NLRB preceded someone physically taping a threatening note to his door that included sensitive personal information and overhead photos of him walking his dog that appeared to be taken with a drone, according to a cover letter attached to his disclosure filed by his attorney, Andrew Bakaj of the nonprofit Whistleblower AID. So what do we have here? We have a government employee who decided to tell the truth and blow the whistle. What happened? Well, he got stalked, intimidated, surveilled, followed, and threatened by Doge. I guarantee it. Totally Leon's modus operandi here. This is how they want to handle everything. And they want you too afraid to dare tell the truth. That's why people like me, whether you realize it or not, are so valuable right now. And we won't be here forever, son. We'll be gone at some point. This is 2 sentences from the Declaration of Independence. That's that document we sent to the king when we told him to fuck off. For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury or due process, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, the founding fathers would be horrified by what you rubes are and what you've put your name on and what Donnie is. Donnie, people like him and you are the reason so many things were written into the Constitution to safeguard us from evil men. What they didn't foresee was one entire political party going along with it, taking money directly from the enemy called Russia in assistance of building this Reich thing where they're straight up fascist, because democracy just don't work for them anymore. It never worked for them. That's why George Bush Sr. was given New World Order speeches back in his day. They never liked democracy, this right-wing thing across the globe. It was just fascism. That was a little nicer for the moment, until they got back to their roots, which is straight up fascism, Hitler style. We're seeing it unfold right before our eyes. Annexation talk, death camps, an innocent man in a death camp, they still don't bring him back and they laugh about it. Nazi salutes, Panzer tank cyber trucks driving around, the same exact angles of the Panzer tank. Leon with his Nazi haircuts, Thale with his Nazi haircuts. arrest and deportation without due process, disobeying judges' rulings, Supreme Court rulings. You need more? This is a Chuck Grassley town hall, and Chuck Grassley is 173 years old. I don't know if you knew that. And one person said, "Are you bringing back that guy from El Salvador?" And then another senior citizen said, "If I get an order to pay a ticket to pay $1,200 and I just say no, does that stand up?" Because he just got an order from the Supreme Court and he just said, "Screw it, I'm pissed." And then Chuck, in the midst of all the yelling and justified anger, 173-year-old Chuck Grassley was trying to respond, but he really had trouble forming the words, getting it out. His response is kind of irrelevant. What I like to see is people in, some MAGA country mentioning this issue. And this is a room full of old white people here that I'm looking at, which is fine. I don't care. I'm just saying, I like to see that the issue's coming up in front of Chuck Grassley. Remember who Mr. Grassley is. He was the guy that was going to take over for Mike Pence. If Mike chickened out, if Mike would have gotten that limo, remember that moment? Where the Secret Service "Hey, Mike, how you doing? Why don't you hop on in?" And Mike's like, "Yeah, I don't think I want to do that, because I know I might disappear. Because I know Donnie's the Antichrist." So Mikey didn't get in the limo. Mr. Grassley, in all his 100-year-old glory, was ready to take over and do the bidding of Donnie's shitbags. Remember that? I do. Tomorrow's the big day. Maryland Senator Van Hollen to visit El Salvador to check on mistakenly deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The big day, the big reveal. I'll know for sure if Abrego is alive or dead after tomorrow. You know how I'll know? If they don't let Mr. Van Hollen into the prison. That'll tell me all I need to know. Groups. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen is traveling to El Salvador on Wednesday. That's today. As Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who officials admitted was mistakenly deported, remains detained in a prison there. Yes, all arguments are moot. The government admitted themselves he's not supposed to be there. We fucked up. So withhold your argument. It's worthless. It's meaningless. The government admitted he shouldn't be there, and now they're laughing as they leave him there to rot, which tells me he's most likely dead. Otherwise, they would have brought him back. On Monday, Van Hollen requested to meet with Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele while he visited Washington, D.C. this week. The senator also said he was prepared to go to El Salvador if Abrego Garcia is not returned. So Van Hollen said he hopes to visit Abrego Garcia and check on his well-being. I don't think this will happen. I think maybe he will go to El Salvador and they'll either not let the plane land or they will just say, "You're not allowed to enter the prison. Sorry, Mr. Van Hollen. Turn around and go home." That's what I expect to happen. I'd love to be wrong and Mr. Van Hollen is let in there. But that would mean cameras would have to be let in there. And there ain't no fucking way they're doing that. They might see bloodstains. They might see emaciated prisoners. They might see a pile of bodies or something. Who knows? So I highly doubt they're letting him in there. But it would be great if he got in there. He got to talk to Abrego for a minute. We can confirm he's alive. That's all we're asking for here. Initially is proof of life. Can we even get that? We haven't even gotten that. What's that tell you, son? He's probably dead. We're going to find out soon. I'll know after tomorrow whether he's alive or dead. I'm already running under the assumption he's dead, because there's no other reason logically for them to withhold all this, even information they're withholding from the courts. And again, all we got was one little signed statement by some random nobody in government saying that according to what he's heard from El Salvador, that Abrego is still alive and he's secure in the prison. But he didn't see him. He didn't hear him. He has no idea if what's being told to him is the truth. So that information is worthless. That's not proof of life in any way, shape, or form. That's a fucking joke. So I'll know after tomorrow if Van Hollen goes and they don't let him in, that'll tell me all I need to know, and I will operate under that assumption from this point forward that he's actually deceased. Homegrown criminal. Donnie loves to talk about the homegrowns. I'll just leave this up as I talk. Again, Donnie's an American citizen. He's an adjudicated rapist, an adjudicated defamer, adjudicated fraud, convicted felon, tried to overthrow the government and install himself as dictator. God knows what would have happened to the vice president if he got in that limo. Stole 3,000 classified documents. Footage of him and Epstein partying at Mar-a-Lago. We just ignore that, though. And he's talking about sending homegrowns to El Salvador. Guess what? We all homegrowns. That's what he really means. And they're loath to use the word citizen because they know Rubes wouldn't like that. Rubes like homegrown. They can run with that as their rights are being taken away, as their country disappears, as their children's future disappears, as we turn into the Fourth Reich, starring Donnie Shitbags and Leon Scum. The convicted felon Donnie Shitbags. He's a homegrown criminal. Adjudicated. Proven. We wouldn't want to ship him to El Salvador, though, would we? Even though 75% of the people we sent don't even have criminal records, but Donnie does. The irony of that you don't even see. This is one of the two pastors that I actually respect online. Although I wish this pastor would go a little further and say what he knows, because I know he knows. I still respect him. The other pastor, he was saying what I was saying back in 2015. So he ain't afraid of nothing. This is Reverend Benjamin Kremer, and he's on Twitter, and I like a lot of what he says. And he posted this today. You are allowed to say at any point, I can't support this, even if you did, even if you were unsure, you can at any point say this has gone too far. And while the best time to say that was earlier, the second best time is now. This is what I'm saying to you every day, every second I'm on here, in my own way. It's a lot more abrasive than Mr. Kremer, I know. But that's just my style. For I am the Lynx of Nine. I'm not Brother James Key, who takes a much softer approach, which is fine. I'm not critiquing him. I love Brother James Key. I'm not Reverend Benjamin Kremer. I'm me. Your guide. This is the guide that was assigned to you. I'm sorry. You got me. I'm a little harsh. I'm a little blunt. Anyway, according to a whistleblower, Musk's Doge stole sensitive information on unions, ongoing legal cases, and corporate secrets, then tried to cover their tracks. The right wing is not about efficiency. They just steal from us all to benefit themselves. Well, this isn't necessarily even the right wing by itself. It's a group of sociopaths called Doge, mostly college dropouts, some straight out of high school. They do things like protect pedophiles online, concealing their identity when the pedophiles go to certain websites, and they offer that as a service. Some of them leak company information. They do all kinds of horrible things. They're all utterly socially awkward, waste of oxygen sociopaths. So this is why that gentleman got the threatening letter taped to his door, got the footage of him walking his dog with a drone that Doge obviously used to follow him around and surveil him. This is why he got threatened. This is what they're trying to intimidate him from, to stop him from talking about. This right here. Stole sensitive information on unions, ongoing legal cases, and corporate secrets, then tried to cover their tracks, then tried to threaten the guy that wants to expose it. Surveilled him, stalked him, threatened him. Now you know why the threats happen. Because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar by someone who's a lot smarter than their dumbasses. I know they all think they're smart. I know Leon thinks he's really smart. Not when you're on the banks of the lake, son. You'll all realize you were never smart. Sorry. Is this the end finally, damn it? No, it's not. I'm almost at the end. I'm gonna fight through it, damn it. This is something that someone wrote and it kind of struck me. Because they seem really concerned and they seem like they know what they're talking about. So let's read it quickly. I am more and more concerned about the White House's trade negotiations to the point where I feel I need to sound an alarm. The White House needs new members on its team for trade. In 3 to 6 months, this is the important part. In 3 to 6 months, we are going to start having shortages of transformers, pumps, air conditioners, and other complex goods which are made or their critical components are made in China. These products, which cannot be efficiently sourced elsewhere in this time frame, are necessary for electricity, clean water, and a pleasant life. The vibe in our country right now is not good, and we do not want to layer on top of that, along with our high gun ownership, a collapse of basic government services. No, this guy, although I applaud their concern, that's exactly what the Reich wants. They want panic, they want desperation, so they can say, we're here to save the day from all the ruination we were responsible for. Here's Donnie Coin. Don't worry, we got you. We know you lost everything of actual value. We're going to give you this worthless Donnie Coin as a replacement. Just sign this little thing that says you renounce the Trinity. Let's go to the next. The White House is doing too many things at the same time. Tariffs, Ukraine, deportations, Yemen, hosting sports teams, and much more. Yes, that's the point again. They don't have a lot of time, I told you. While China is singularly focused on this issue, which they have been studying and preparing for close to a decade indeed. Short of blockading the Persian Gulf, which China certainly has a contingency plan for, the U.S. does not have much leverage with China. The U.S. is a net food importer, and the foods that we do export to China can be purchased elsewhere. Soybeans from Brazil, in a way that critical machinery like transformers, pumps, etc. cannot. We heard about this soybean stuff and Brazil in the first term, remember? A lot of soybean farmers in New Jersey, where I'm from, too. China's already saying they're not going to buy the stuff. They're going to go elsewhere. So those farmers are fucked. It is not possible to turn all the made in China components we need into made in Vietnam overnight. Oh no, that would take like a decade or more. Even with the cheating that is happening to make this occur. Perhaps the US will be fine because we will buy up all spare capacity outside of China, leaving the rest of the world in big trouble. Yeah, good luck trying that move after you've talked shit on every country out there. By the time the shortages hit, it will be too late to fix the problem, indeed, because it takes months for new inventory to reach their international destinations. Indeed, the problem becomes exponential. And as I explained in my pinned post, no one is starting U.S. factories to replace China's capacity amidst this uncertainty. No one's ever doing that ever. Again, I told you in China, they got, factories that are 50 square miles. We ain't doing that here. It's not happening. I'm sorry. And if it did happen, it would take like 20 years to fucking get set up. For over a year since I was able to return to China after 5 years because of COVID lockdowns, I have been telling people that are underestimating China as a rival to U.S. hegemony. This is increasingly evident from our trade negotiations where they have consistently refused to fold. I'm not going to read the rest of this. You get the point. There's not much left. Indeed, China does not back down in the face of our trade threats or Donnie's tariff grift. Why? Because China doesn't need us. We need China. And it's that fucking simple. And there's no legit argument against that. They produce more. Their people work like slaves because they have to. There's no workers' rights. It's a complete police state. It is 1984, the novel. Read it. Just write the word China on the front. That's what it is. We can't begin to compete with their manufacturing, what they got going. And it would take 20 years to even remotely come close to building what we need. I don't care what motherfucking expert comes at me with what numbers. The reality is, China is a factory nation. We're not. We're a nation of traitors who betray their country at the voting booth, and companies that betray their country by shipping all the jobs overseas. China is not that. That's why we lose. We are the fat nation, the lazy nation. China is not that. They're not allowed to be. That's why we lose. Let's go to the next thing. This is Miss Levitt, the nose, lying again about Abrego Garcia. Abrego was a foreign terrorist. No, he wasn't. That's a complete fabrication. He is an MS-13 gang member. No, he wasn't. That's a complete fabrication. He was engaged in human trafficking. No, he wasn't. That's a complete fabrication. The White House hasn't provided evidence for any of these claims. Indeed, no court of law ever said he was any of those things. Yet Miss Levitt is in your face, bold-faced lying, made up all three of those things. About a man in a death camp that the government admitted should not have been deported. So Miss Levitt's statement is irrelevant there. All that's relevant is the government said we shouldn't have deported and we made a mistake. Every other argument is worthless. His background is worthless. Doesn't matter. The government said they fucked up. But the real point of this moment is here is a woman with a horrid nose job standing in front of the world with her privileged life, married to a 60-year-old millionaire at age 27. And she's lying her face off, saying this man that's probably dead or emaciated and about to die in a cell with 70 other men, that he's a sex trafficker, a gang member, a human trafficker, a terrorist. Anything else? Because if you listen to Miss Levitt, you'd think he's Hannibal fucking Lecter. The problem is, not a bit of it's true, son. But here's the point. Again, this is what I'm really trying to say. Miss Levitt You're lying about a dead man that you helped ship to El Salvador via your propaganda. The man's most likely deceased or in a death camp at this very moment. And your government, your Reich, said they shouldn't have sent him. They made a mistake. So you stand there as your Louis Vuitton bag is waiting for you in the chair behind the curtain. In your expensive clothing, in your horrid plastic surgery and nose job. Lying about a man you folks illegally sent to a death camp, who is most likely deceased now. I would not want to be you. The price you're going to have to pay for that. When the man comes around, you know that man you pretend to believe in when you wear the oversized cross. He's going to have a conversation with you regarding Mr. Abrego Garcia and your abject lies about him as he stands at the gates of heaven. Man, I would hate to be these people. These people, including Miss Levitt, are just pure, abject evil. And there's just no other way to describe them. I wish they weren't that. What do you call a woman with a horrid nose job that talks about a dead man, says he's a gang member when he was never a gang member, says he was a human trafficker when he was not a human trafficker? In fact, the U.S. government are now human traffickers. They want to take some of you U.S. citizens and ship you down there too, and traffic you too. So it's funny, the projection here that's going on. And a terrorist, you say, again, Donnie's a terrorist. He tried to overthrow the government. What else do you call that but a terrorist? And Donnie's been mob his whole life, so gang member, gang leader, before he was owned by Vlad. Now Vlad's the gang leader. So, well, like Donnie's all three of these things. He's a trafficker, he's a mobster, and he's a terrorist. I guess that means he's eligible, since we're doing homegrowns now. That's what I heard from the Reich anyway. They're doing homegrown. So Donnie's a homegrown, convicted felon. Whistleblower says Musk's Doge stole 10 gigabytes of union data, legal files, corporate secrets, then tried to cover it up. That's not efficiency. That's espionage. Indeed. Now you know why the threats were made. Again. And we are at the end here finally. And I'll show you Mr. Garcia's face one last time before we go. Hong Kong has suspended postal service for all goods being sent to the United States, saying the U.S. is unreasonable, bullying, and imposing tariffs abusively. This is just getting worse and worse. Again, so many of you rubes out there, I know you cannot live without China. How are you going to get your MAGA hats with 104% tariff? They're made in China, son. My point is, farms, businesses, etc. I know you need China. I know you're hurting like a motherfucker right now, and you're going to be hurting a lot worse. It doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. China just keeps making moves. I don't know what all you business people and farmers are going to do. I mean, there's only so many socialist handouts to go around for you people, right? We're going to run out of money eventually. I guess Donnie will just move us over to Bitcoin then. So China making another big move. This sounds like it's going to hurt. And hurt bad. And again, one more time, China don't need us, son. They got plenty of customers for their shitty products that they manufacture. They do not need us. And we're going to end with this man's face again. How many days has it been? And we don't even know if this man's alive. No proof of life still to this day. Mr. Van Hollen's going to go there today. I imagine they won't let him in the jail or the death camp, excuse me, because it's not a jail. Let's be honest about what it is. And after Mr. Van Hollen goes home without seeing Mr. Garcia, I will then operate under the assumption that Mr. Garcia is dead. Because that'd be the only reason not to let Mr. Van Hollen in. That's the face. Get a good look at it. All you people that have your name on this, that's the face of the man you sent to die. Your name's on it. I would not want to be you when the man comes around. I would not want to have my name on this demonic shit. I look forward to proof of life regarding this man. I don't think I'll ever get it, though. Until the next episode, have a wonderful evening.